However, I also stated that it is about the easiest of the problems to fix. What has made it impossible for us to get it right in the past decades is because we were actually moving in the opposite direction to the solution. Let's consider Canada, for instance. We did a good thing by bringing in Manitoba Hydro of Canada to help manage our national transmission backbone. However, what we ought to do was not just to bring in Manitoba Hydro, it was to understudy the system in place in Canada. If we had done that, we would have realized that in Canada, Manitoba Hydro would never have been assigned the duty of managing their national transmission backbone. Manitoba Hydro was operating in the district of Manitoba, managing a maximum 4,000 megawatts. It has never managed beyond that in a small district in Canada. When you look at what they have done, each district in Canada is relatively autonomous in terms of their capacity to manage long-distance transmission, to manage generation, and to manage local distribution. Whereas we refused to copy such a beautiful system that has worked, we came in to experiment with what has never worked anywhere in the world. That, indeed, is our problem. So we take a look at the United Kingdom, where we have operators like British Gas, like Scottish Power, and so on. We are supposed to imitate these systems, and that is how to get it right. The system, that is it. Not just bringing their good companies here, because when you bring a good company here, Manitoba Hydro is a good company. You bring them here, they operate under a different system. You have the tendency to even cause one thing, either make them look like us or make them look so foolish. And that is what we have had. And the fact that we currently do not have sustainable electricity today is because we are paying penalties, serious penalties, for our foolery. So what we need to consider first and foremost is these systems that are working. These systems that are working. We got it right with our telecom sector liberalization. Rather than transferring that advantage and ELECO to what we wanted to do with the area of electricity, we abandoned it completely and started experimenting with what we called privatization. It's only Nigeria in the entire history of this world that will conduct such massive privatization and spend more on the supposed establishment to be privatized.
That also takes us to manpower. For instance, we talk about looking at some of the ministries, for instance, those in the power sector. Some people will be asking the question, are we likely to talk about training? Are we going to move people from some other key ministries into other ministries, knowing full well that they have the expertise to fixing the problem that that particular ministry will be looking into? Because if you say you want to start training people, then we'll be talking about a huge amount of time spent on training before we start fixing the problem.
Sulai, let's look at something about cultural fit. You see, if you have been in a ministry for several years doing things wrong, there is that tendency or likelihood that you get used to doing it wrong. So one of the first things, for instance, I will expect someone like Fashola to get done is to redistribute some of these workers to some other places and bring in fresh people, because it's a lot easier to condition fresh minds than condition people who have had items padded in different parts of the budget, they would resist you and form the first set of bulwarks of resistance against you. So, yes, training is very crucial, training is very critical, but training the right people. Of course, within that ministry, there are good hands. There are people themselves who are averse to what has been happening. So one of the things Fashola could again do is to set up one day, or maybe 3 days, for instance, for what I will call devil's advocacy workshop, and telling them, come to this workshop, don't tell me any good things about what you have done. Tell me the bad things. That is what we want to know. That opportunity, because a minister is sanctioning it, that is when you will hear some very, very deadly truth.
I really would wait and see how that pans out. But if you look at the headline, one of the bits of news on the front page of New Telegraph, I don't know how much of knowledge you have in the civil service. The president, the headline there is President Buhari warns PAMSECs against sabotaging ministers. What does that tell you when you see a headline such as that?
Thank you, Sulai. I actually had experience, extensive one for that matter, beyond 10 years, leading particular very important department in that had civil servants. I had directors that worked with me. I had secretary that worked with me. I was coordinator of SEDEC. So what you have stated is very germane, and the president was right. Civil servants are good people, wonderful people, but because they understand the terrain effectively, they can sabotage you. That is very easy. And that is one of the reasons that the new ministers, whether water resources or some other ministries, like, for instance, solid minerals, education, and so on, one of the core set of things they needed to do is to interact with these people. In the process of interaction, certain things will come up. One of it is you could really identify those that are willing to work with you. However, they have an advantage, and I will chip in that advantage. I do not see any civil servant that will be bold enough to want to challenge the Buhari's minister. See, Buhari has come to have this, which is not, in future, this is not what Nigerians' development should be based upon. But Buhari has a personality that nobody will want to cross. That is an advantage previous presidents seemed not to have. Some civil servants could flout directives in the past, get away with it, because they knew nothing would happen. But I do not think civil servants now would want to try that. So that is some advantage for these new ministers, especially if they are driven by the interest of Nigerians, because this also matter. They will watch you. If they see that this minister is one that doesn't care so much, or that is corrupt, for instance, then they will be willing to undermine you, and they can get away with it. So I agree perfectly with the statement credited to the president that the permanent secretaries and other senior officers within the public service should not undermine them, but the ministers themselves have to be watchful and also assert authority efficiently and lead from the front as leaders. That is what Nigeria requires at this time. Look at our stock of national infrastructure when it comes to civil infrastructure, for instance. The number of roads we have in this station, we're clocking at almost 100,000 kilometers. And what do you see? Potholes at all times. This will require proactive measures that will offer hope to the masses that they now have a government for the first time. That's why people are excited. Even people who did not work for Buhari are excited because they have this thing at the back of their mind that this is a no-nonsense person who means business and who wants to leave a mark. And these appointments have indicated that. Look at what happened in the education industry. In the education industry, people were expecting that Mr. President would appoint, say, a professor as a substantive minister, which would be good. However, look at what he did. He picked someone who has spent several years pontificating on the need to fix that sector, and not only that, offering street measurable solutions that can really address the fundamental challenges in that sector.
All right, Tunji, we get your views, but many eyes, if not all, will be fixated, as a matter of fact, on all of this and look to see when they can get results. Thank you very much indeed for your thoughts today. Tunji Ariyomo is the Policy Chair on Energy and Infrastructure of the National Development Initiative.